Greetings everyone, my name is Valfreya Vanadis and I am an oracle, runes master and seeress. I will use my abilities to decipher and explicit the meaning of ancient texts and artifacts of that old legacy of ours, the forgotten and lost culture of Europa. Today I wish to talk about the illustration of the land of the dead warriors of the Norse mythology of Odin, the hall of the chosen valorous ones, Valhalla. More specifically, the passage where the dining halls of Odin are described. The story goes as such. Men who wish to prove their valor have to live the life of warriors and kings, and die sword in hand, instead of in shame of old age at home or lying in a bed. On the battlefields of the world, ravens would survey the ongoing battles and call upon Valkyrias to come and get the valorous chosen to Valhalla, when they're not already watching. These beautiful women, living in the service of Odin, would then carry them away to the golden doors, protectors of Odin's ideals, in what is called his army of warriors, the Einherjar, often most translated as those who fight as one for the one. Their destiny there upon this point is to spend all day fighting, and if dead, resurrect in time for the evening grand feast they will all share alongside Odin. A special honor, to be sure, for these hand-picked attendants, as Odin is the highest god of the Aesir. The depiction of these halls then appears in the Poetic Edda through the poem Grimnismol, or the Ballad of Grimnir, within these terms: Mjorkethosken te theimes til Odins komme, salkeniat sja, skaptemes ranreft, skjaldemes alathakither, Brinium of Bergistrot. In the words of Mr. Benjamin Thorpe, here is what this 9th stanza would translate into. Easily to be known is, by those who to Odin come, the mansion by its aspect. Its roof with spears is led, its hall with shields is decked, with corselets are its benches strewed. The Old Norse word Brynjum resembles the word Berni, a historical English name for coat of mail. This translation uses the word corselet, which as a protective gear fulfills a similar purpose. To simplify things, I will use the word chainmail, as for nowadays it would be the most transparent term. The last verse, with corselets are its benches strewed, or Brynjum of Bergistrot, in the original Old Norse poem, is the part that I wish to focus on in this chapter, as it holds a very deep wisdom of the way of the warrior inside, and the expectations of Odin from his heroic army. Especially so, since this account was made available most and foremost for aspiring warriors, and perhaps future Einherjar. So what does it mean? From what I can see, the chainmail is directly placed on wooden benches. Some have little fur on them, but none have hay. Also it seems that, upon arrival, the Einherjar do not find any chainmail on the benches either. Rather, the onlooker who describes the halls sees them during a feast while on the way. So this leaves only one possibility, and there is where the wisdom lies. Upon entering the halls, the the Einherjar take off their own chainmail and put it under them. Their helmet is somewhere nearby. I see them aligned on a shelf around the hall's tables on the wall. Their weapons are... Where are they? They are not mentioned. That's because, after understanding this, it should be obvious to a warrior, hearing this, where their weapons lay. Poetry is a test, after all. This all makes sense, considering that the Einherjar are directly attending the feast after the day of battle. As such, it means that Odin lets them tidy up their appearance before the festivities, but expects them to present themselves in full battle attire. This verse then clearly means and says, "Remember who you are." This has two consequences, one of tactical nature and one of mental fortitude or moral kind. So the first one has obviously to do with their position and status as Einherjar. As Odin's hand-picked elite warriors, it is expectable of them to be prepared to protect him at any moment, and it is with their honor and pride at stake that they uphold their responsibilities and never forget their loyalty towards him and their warrior selves. Odin chose them to prepare for the worst, Ragnarök, an event he did not know when would happen and on what terms and conditions. A warrior has to be ready at all times for battle, especially if their lord is present and nearby. This mindset is to be found in absolutely all martial philosophies around the world, no matter the time or place. For some specialized references, I recommend reading Master Martial Artist Bruce Lee's legacy around Jeet Kune Do in the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, the Banzen Shukai, or All Rivers Merge into the Sea, from the ninja Fujibayashi Yasutake for stealth combat, the Gorin no Sho, or Book of the Five Rings, from the samurai Miyamoto Musashi about swords mastery, and the Art of War from the General Sun Tzu on how to organize armies. These are but a few examples of this very same principle, coming from faraway eras of the eastern end of the world. Similarly, from a ruler's standpoint, it is of tactical importance to maintain vigilance. After all, it seems, Odin requests the presence of all Einherjar by his side for the evening feast, especially when new ones are to be welcomed into their ranks. This would be a perfect opportunity for an enemy to take over or take out the main force of Valhalla, when they are in a state of unguarded and somewhat powerless self. So whilst the Einherjar may take off their armor to relax, it should be handy and nearby. Well, it is too easy to imagine the otherwise glittering mess it would be in case of an attack if all had to first run to where the chainmail are stored and untangle them and discuss which and whose is what, since it's quite hard to tell chainmail apart or personalize them at all. How many would fall prey to archers and spearmen before all are equipped and ready? The heaviness and perhaps discomfort coming from the chainmail serves as a constant reminder for them of the weight of their allegiance and fealty towards Odin Eternal. It is tempting, after all, to just let one's guard down and relax after a hard day of battle, when everything hurts and the drinks are taking effect. Which brings me to my second point of consequence. The moral code of the warriors of Valhalla. In the ᚹᚨᚚᚾᚋ, or the words of the High One, Odin said that the enemy of man is a deep drink. In the stanzas 11 and 12 of the section Gestaþottr, he would express it in this manner. Björði betri berat, maður brátuat, en sem mann vet mikið, vegenest vera vegra vedliat, en se oft rykja öls. Is at sva gott, som gott og kvide ölolde sønum, því at føra vet is flera drekkur, sinns til getheskummi. As for the English meaning, Mr. Benjamin Thorpe would translate it as such. A worse provision on the way he cannot carry than too much beer-bidding. So good is not, as it is said, beer for the sons of men. A worse provision no man can take from table than too much beer-bidding, for the more he drinks, the less control he has of his own mind. As I have stated before, it is far too easy to assault a hall, or even a fortress, full of drunken and unguarded warriors. Of course, this is the reputation northern warriors have always enjoyed, and particularly do nowadays, but that reputation is wrong. The very words of Odin say so. He wants sharp warriors that can have a feast, but never dull their senses. After all, they are warriors first and foremost, his pride and joy of the most valorous kind. How long would it take to feast them, to become mere pigs otherwise? They dine every day after all. So it's about the drinks, but the food as well. One can relax, but should never forget. The chainmail and helmets are here as a reminder of the resolve it takes to even be seated at that table, even if the mind should wander off. This brings me to the absence of hay on the benches. On the same note as before, in case of an emergency, it would, maybe, fly around, make everyone sneeze, stick to stuff, and in case of battle, cause a commotion if spread to the fires. It is too risky. The comfort is not worth it. It is a matter of priorities. So, luxurious feasts, comfy heat from comfy fires, and a great atmosphere in a splendid hall, if taken for granted, can all dullen your senses, either momentarily or irremediably. Elementally, entering Valhalla is the beginning of the path of the Einherjar, where the hitherto proven warriors are sharpened further, and hardly the end goal itself. The standards have to be upheld until the end of time and surpassed. So whilst merrymaking is allowed and most welcomed, always remember who you are. So then, after all this is said, let me ask you, how many of you are dining with chainmail on your benches? Valfreyja in Odin's Vegvisir. I thank you for listening. Until next time.